Yeah, 1 second here. All right, well, everyone, holding by the Book of Leviticus Chapter 16. Again, welcome everyone, holding by the Book of Leviticus Chapter 16. We are in verse 33. Hopefully, finish up the chapter today. We'll see how far it goes. Again, want to welcome everyone. Holding by the Book of Leviticus Chapter 16. We're in verse 33. So it tells me we're speaking about, again, Yom Kippur and everything that this whole chapter about with the Kohen, what the high priest has to do on Yom Kippur. And we spoke about the fact that Kohen, verse 32, the Kohen's been anointed, given authority, serve in the place of his father, right? He shall atone, don the linen vestments, and the sacred vestments. Again, he has to wear certain vestments when he serves in the temple, and he has the ability to take over for his father, right? His father either can't serve or passes away. And in verse 33, the Torah says, Keeper es mikdash hakodesh ves oil moed ves mizbeach yechaper al kohanim al kohan makal yechaper. So here the Torah says that he's going to bring atonement. This is what he spoke a little bit about last week, or a good part of last week. And that is, he'll bring atonement upon the Holy of Holies. He'll bring atonement upon the tent of meeting and the altar, upon the kohanim, upon all the people of the congregation. He's going to bring atonement. So basically, the Kohen brings the sacrifice, right? He brings the sacrifice in the temple, or at this point, the tabernacle, right? The high priest brings the sacrifice, and there are two, one sacrifice and one goat. Sorry, one goat goes to what we call Azazel. The Torah says Azazel obviously can't be a deity. To be a deity, we spoke about that. That'd be idolatry. Right, so basically, he's sending to a certain place in the desert, and basically the goat's going to die any number of ways. But make no mistake, it's not a sacrifice, right? The sacrifice is the second sacrifice, right? The second goat that gets sacrificed, and he's going to bring atonement again upon the tent of meeting, the altar, all the kohanim, all the people of the congregation. He's going to bring atonement. So who does he bring atonement for? Brings atonement for himself, for his family, and for the sake of the Jewish people. So now there's going to be a question. There's going to be a question over here that what if the person himself doesn't repent, right? We spoke about that last week. What happens? It says over here that the Kohen, the high priest, is going to bring atonement on the tent of meeting, the altar, and upon the other Kohanim and all the congregation. So by bringing the sacrifice, what does the Kohen do? What does the Kohen do? He brings atonement for everybody. Seemingly for everybody. The high priest, all the Kohanim, and the entire congregation. Now we know that Yom Kippur is a pretty intense day, right? It's called the Day of Atonement. And that being the case, there's an obligation for a person to repent also. Yom Kippur is not just a, ipso facto, abracadabra, comes along Yom Kippur and atone. You don't have to do anything. That's not true. All right, that's be confession. There's no question if confession and repentance are the same, part of the same mitzvah, the separate mitzvahs, right? That we spoke about in depth last week. But the one thing here in this verse that I want to mention, and that is from the Ibn Ezra. Ibn Ezra, one of the great early commentators. The Ibn Ezra over here says that upon the Kohanim, he's going to bring atonement and upon the congregation. So who's he talking about? He's talking about the Levites, right? The tribe of Levi. Because in the tribe of Levi, you have Kohanim and you have Levites. Yeah, but he says Levites are not called Kohanim. Very good. Levites are not called Kohanim. And a Kohen, and any Kohen can be considered a Levi. But a Levi, not every Levi is going to be a Kohen. So they're going to say, who cares? What's he telling me? What's Ibn Ezra over here telling me? First of all, I have a tribe. I have a tribe of Levi. I have a tribe of Levi. You say, well, aren't they all Levites? That would make sense. Right? You have Kahats, you call them the Kahatites. Right? You have you have Merari, you call them the Merarites. So you call someone who belongs to the tribe of Levi, what do you call them? Levites. But there's a misnomer over here. What's the misnomer? The misnomer is, you're right, anyone who comes from the tribe of Levi should be called a Levite. But don't we know that a Kohen also comes from the tribe of Levi? 100%. A Kohen comes from the tribe of Levi. So what's Ibn Ezra telling me? He's telling you, first of all, how Levim are not called Kohanim. Even though they come from the tribe of Levi, they're not called Kohanim. They're called Levites, or in Hebrew they call them Leviim. They're not called Kohanim. But a Kohen, right, any Kohen automatically has the status of a Levi unless he's singled out to be a Kohen. But not every Levi is a Kohen. You gotta say, okay, it's a little bit confusing. So we'll make it simple. A Kohen automatically, unless we know otherwise, is a Levi. But a Kohen can also be a Kohen. Just the fact that he comes from the tribe of Levi means he could also be a Kohen. A Levi could be a Kohen. And a Kohen could be a Levi. But not every Levi can be a Kohen. All right? So practically speaking, even if they come from the same tribe, even if you tell me a Levite comes from the tribe of Levi, a Kohen comes from the tribe of Levi, a Levite over here is not necessarily a Kohen. On the other hand, the Kohen definitely is a Levite. There will be some Kohanim that 100% are Kohanim. It depends. He's just pointing out that a Levi does not automatically have the status of a Kohen. A Kohen, as God will say, will have the status of a Levi. But there will be Kohanim that have the status of a Kohen. Where do we see that from Aaron a Kohen? God tells Moshe, make Aaron the high priest. Anyone comes out of Aaron, right? Anyone comes out of Aaron, they could be the high priest. Yeah, because other people be the high priest in theory if they come from the tribe of Levi. But we had people that bought the high priesthood way back when. They all died. Right? They all died when they die in Yom Kippur. So imagine someone buys their way in, obviously illegally. They want to be the high priest. Right? High priest, there's a lot of power. People take care of your needs, all kinds of other things. Very good. And then there's going to be a day you're going to go into the Holy of Holies. Now, if you're not holding spiritually and you walk in the Holy of Holies, you will die. I don't know what the perk exactly is that a person wants to, I don't know, I guess the person would want to see God face to face, and get all the benefits from that. So I guess, a little bit you go, maybe they think they're not really going to die, per se. Otherwise, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense why someone is going to want to be anyone who's going to be the high priest. What's going to happen? They for sure, 100%, if they're not holding there spiritually, they walk in the Holy of Holies, they will be dragged out. They'll die. Again, maybe someone wants just to have that experience, be able to see what it means to actually see God. Okay, but you're going to die. 100% you're going to die. That there's no question. That's what happened. Every year they had to find it, a new high priest. So it wasn't done on the up and up that, people took positions that weren't fitting for them. Status of a Levi, but a Levite not necessarily have the status of a Kohen. Now, how are you going to know, even though they come from the same tribe? How are we going to know? How are we going to know if they're a Kohen or not? So there's such a thing as what we call yichus. What's yichus? Genealogy. Now, someone wants to ask me, how do I know if I'm not a Kohen? So I said, your father would know if he was a Kohen. And he'd say, but what if he didn't know? Right? So this is something that is well known. Person asked me, are there any Kohanic papers? Genealogy that would show he's a bona fide bred Kohen. Some people have them. That's what we call a Kohen Amyuchis. Someone who's got the, lack of a better term, has got better genealogy. He's got proof of genealogy over here. Now, that being the case, what if he doesn't have papers? What if he doesn't have papers? And he says he's a Kohen. Now, do we have any doubts over here? Was there any funny conversions in previous generations? Do we have any reason to think he's not a Kohen? If we have reason to think he's not a Kohen, something happens. Let's say there was intermarriage. Let's say there was assimilation. Well, assimilation doesn't mean he's not a Kohen. If he's with somebody he's not allowed to be with, and he has a child, let's say a Jewish child, that child will never serve, never be as a Kohen. Right? It's a blemish Kohen. Blemish Kohen will never serve. Right? They'll never serve in the temple. But let's say we don't have any problems. We don't have any issues. If we have no issues coming in, we can assume this has been passed down generation to generation. We don't have a problem. If the person says he's a Kohen, I don't have to doubt him. Now, he could have the name Katz, which is, the name of a family, Kohanic family. He could have the name of Levi, could be a Kohen. Right? It's not really necessarily a good proof. Kohen, I would think, is a good proof. But you got a lot of Kohens that aren't Jewish today. But you have certain family names that would show they come from Kohanim. Certain Kohanim names. Kohanic names, I guess you would say. So if we don't have any doubts, right, we don't have anything bringing up that there's a problem over here, then my assumption is that the person says he's a Kohen. How does he know? Because his father told him. And how does his father know he's a Kohen? This is something that's known, unless they hide it. Yeah, but in general, most people know if they're a Kohen or they're not. Most people today in the Jewish people are not Kohanim. They don't come from the tribe of Levi. Most everybody comes from another tribe. Which tribe? We don't know. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. Elijah the prophet will come and tell people which tribe they're from, when the Messiah comes. But before that, we don't know. As long as we're not a Kohen or a Levi, it really doesn't matter. Right? It doesn't really matter. Even for a Kohen and a Levi today, Kohanim are not bringing sacrifices. Right? We don't have sacrifices today. So there are certain things by a Kohen, that no one else has. First of all, only certain people he can marry. Yeah, we read it in this week's Parsha. right? Certain people he can marry. He can't be defined by a dead body, unless there's no one else to bury them, right? When it comes to being called up to the Torah during the week, he gets called up first. Okay, it's a perk, but the only issues today, are going to pretty much are going to be who they can marry. They're called up to the Torah first. That's about it. Nothing really more significant except the fact they are born into that family, right? They're born, into that tribe. And according to that, the end of days, they'll have a lot more special privileges. And they had a lot of special privileges before. Why? Because God singled them out. God singled them out. That's bottom line. People think, it's a big thing to marry a Cohen, maybe. Maybe, but a Cohen can only marry certain people. Without going into all that. So Levi also, not much, again, Levi be called up second. If there's a Levite in the congregation, he gets called up second during the week or on Shabbos. Otherwise, not too many things that differentiate, a Levite today than anybody else, right? Not very many things. So God singled out not only the Jewish people, but among the Jewish people, the Kohanim. The Kohanim were the ones who taught. The Kohanim were the ones that did all the sacrifices. The Kohanim were the ones that were taken care of financially by the people. They were given part of the sacrifices. They were supported. Right? People are going to say, "Oh, look, okay, the Kohanim were busy working all day, right? They had a shift, once every 6 months, but they had to work in the temple. That was their job, and they also taught Torah. When they weren't working in the temple, they taught. They were the teachers. So when the Torah tells me in Deuteronomy chapter 17, we'll get there one day, probably when about 102, right? The pace we're going. But it says you got to listen to the Kohanim in every generation, and the Levite in every generation. So who are they today? Oh, let's go further. What does the Torah say? If you don't listen to them, whatever they tell you, right is left, left is right. Not only have an obligation to listen to them, Torah says if I don't listen to them, what's the punishment? Death penalty. Death penalty. Now, who are the Kohanim today? This is where it gets a little bit dicey, as English would say. Where are the Kohanim today? Where are the Kohanim? You have their obligation to listen to them. Because again, the Kohanim are singled out. The rabbis are singled out. They're also singled out today. And they should be supported. Why? Because if their main job is teaching, plenty of rabbis work in Orthodox synagogues, they get paid, pennies. They, do other jobs to make ends meet. What about, so who can have the status of Kohanim today? The ones that can have status of the Kohanim today, the Rambam says at the end of the laws of Shemitah and Yovel, about sabbatical year. What does it compare the Kohanim today? Of people sitting and learning, who took the yoke of learning and not the yoke of parnasa, and not the yoke of making ends meet, of a quote unquote a real job. Oh, they're only sitting and learning. Yeah. Well, we all people sitting and learning full time, they're upholding the world. So people like that, they deserve to be helped. 100% they deserve to be helped. As much as a person can help. Because they're the ones passing Torah down to the next generation. Some people think, like here in Israel, they'll say, come on, not everyone should be sitting and learning. They have to take on responsibility, got to do the army. Right? We're not going to get into politics. But the point is, yeah, there are deferments. There are people that do serve. But they'll say, we'll take the best. We'll let the best sit and learn. Couple thousand. We'll let the best of the best, sit and learn. We'll give them a full exemption. Everyone else, we want them to serve. Now, they'll claim, of course, what's it for? To share the burden, even though they don't really need us. They don't need us in the army, but that's a different issue, right? We're not going to get into the whole army issue. Oh, but what's the point? The point is, you need, because of what happened during the Holocaust, and we lost so many rabbinic authorities. You need people, for a certain amount of time at least, to be able to sit and learn undisturbed so they can also pass down to the next generation. So they also have that ability to do such a thing. Oh, but what does the rest of the world look at them like? They look at them and they'll say, as they say here in the Israeli media, they'll call them cockroaches, they'll call them parasites, or in Hebrew they'll call them parasitim, right? They call them parasites, not doing anything for the world. All they're doing is they're sitting learning all these ancient texts and whatever. They're not doing anything for the world. Obviously, they're upholding the world. Yeah. But if you don't have these people sitting and learning what's going to happen in Judaism, doesn't mean you won't necessarily have rabbis and maybe have, you have some, but you're not going to have world-class authority. Are you going to have world-class authorities if a person's not diving into Torah day in and day out? And I see this all the time, where, people have like a drop of knowledge and they think that God's gift to the world. Yeah. Drop of knowledge, barely read Hebrew. Right? And they're already quoting this, that, and the other thing, and they think they know. Yeah, it takes years. I hate to say it takes years. That doesn't mean we're not, we can't make mistakes. Plenty of things we can make mistakes in, okay? Someone's learning years and years. You're not just going to knock them off like a fly. I mean, they could be wrong, let's say. Let's say they made an egregious mistake. Okay? They missed a Rambam, they missed a Tosfos, they missed, a Gemara, later commentary, early commentator, whatever it could be. Could be. Question is, it's still an obligation to listen to them. And that doesn't mean they're not infallible. But what's the point? What's the point here? The point is that people have to understand one very simple thing. Yeah, and that is, as we just mentioned, that Levites do not necessarily become Kohanim, but Kohanim can definitely be Levites. Are definitely Levites. Now, that also shows another important thing, right? What's the other important thing over here? And that is, not everybody does the same thing, right? Not everybody has the same job, right? There are things that Levites do that Kohanim can't do. There are things that Kohanim do that Levites can't do. Yeah. No one can do what the other, no one can do 100% what the others do. And the Israel can't do either. Now, it's my fault I was born in Israel? No. I told my father, bless the memory, if he would have paid more, I would have been a Kohen. I would have been a Kohen. Right? What can I do? I'm in Israel. So the other point, first of all, what do I see? Not everyone has the same jobs. Definitely not everyone has the same jobs. Yeah. If not everyone has the same job. So it's not a question, everyone's created equal. Nope. We just read Parshas Not So Least here in Israel. Everyone's going to read it outside of Israel next week because the second day of the holiday of Shavuos for everybody on Shabbos outside of Israel. But it goes through a lot of counting. The longest parsha in the Torah. But at the same time, it goes through a lot of counting of the princes and the families, how many there were, etc. Right? So it mentions Kahas first, even though Kahas was not the firstborn. Why? So commentaries explain that what was Kahas's job? What was their job? In the tabernacle and the Mishkan. Their job was to carry the vessels. To carry the vessels that were going to be sanctified. What was Kahas's job? What was their job? To hold the Aron. To hold the ark. So the commentaries say, who's got the more important job? Who's got the more important job? Kahas. Because he's holding the ark. What does the ark represent? What's in the ark? Tablets. The Torah. So what's more important? Holding the ark itself, which represents the Torah, which is holding the Torah, or carrying the vessels. Now, the vessels also important. They're the ones going to be sanctified and put on the altar and all that. That's true. That's 100% true. At the same time, is that important? Is that more important than learning Torah? No. Not only that, when we turn the Torah to the ark, Monday, Thursday, or on Rosh Chodesh, the new month, or on Shabbos, what do we say? We say, Eitz Chaimi l'machzikim ba. The Torah is the tree of life to those that grab onto it, or grab fast to it, however you want to translate it. L'machzikim ba. What's the language? What's the form? Hefil. What's hefil? Causative. It's not active. It's not the active form of the verb. It's causative. So who cares? What do I care? It's active. It's not active. Because it's not a question of I'm putting anything into the Torah. It's not how much am I adding to Torah here. I'm not adding to anything to Torah. Just the opposite. Torah is holding me. Right? Torah is strengthening me. Right? Because what do we say over here? We say that Kahas, what did he do? He held the Aaron. Yeah, but it's brought down. Didn't really do much because the Aaron carried itself. That's the idea. There ain't nothing more important than learning Torah. Nothing. But a guy has, an obligation. He's married. He's got to fulfill the ksuba, right? The marriage documents. One of the things he's got to do, he's got to give his wife clothing, shelter, parnasa. He's got to bring him money. Now, if she decides she's willing to sacrifice and let him sit and learn all day, and she'll bring in the money and whatever he brings in for however long, so that's a great thing. And that's what you have today. You have many people sitting and learning, all day long. How many years? Depends how much they can do. Yeah, they're gonna say it's not fair. Well, what's not fair over here? This woman is dedicating her life because beginning of her marriage, she wants her husband to learn. She doesn't want him to go out to work so quick. She wants to have a strong foundation. 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, whatever she can do. Now, is she obligated? No, not at all. And there are women that don't want that. There are women, when her husband's working, bringing in money. It's hard to do both, and you're raising kids. It's hard. That's true. It's a lot of self-sacrifice. Now, again, someone will say, is that an obligation for women today? No, it's not an obligation. Not an obligation. Right? First thing they can say, see, look what's written there in the Ksuba. And the marriage document says you got to support. Yeah, so they're not going to get set up with people who want to sit and learn. They might agree he wants to learn, a certain amount of time, but he's got to work most of the time. Okay, it's a different issue. But someone who wants to sit and learn all day, you're not going to make a match between two people like that. But if that's what she wants, and that's what a lot of people being taught today. Yeah, it's a huge thing. Marriage starts off differently. Very different. People say it's not fair and they're being brainwashed, this and that. Again, what does it do? If a person's really learning, they're going through things, they're working on character development, all kinds of other things. Huge. That's huge. It gives a strong base to the family. I don't think there's any question. Not everyone's able to do it. Not everyone is capable of sitting and learning all day. Yeah, it's hard. Yeah, people used to tell me that, you never do much all day, do you? I go, you want to learn 10 hours a day? Break your head, you come home, you're just like totally drained. And say, you're not doing anything for the world. Okay, that's a different issue. That's what they think. We believe we're upholding the world. That's the power of Torah. Nothing more important than Torah. Nothing. Right? Someone will tell me, yeah, someone I went to yeshiva with, and he did the army, and right, without even getting into all the army issues, I said, what was the bottom line? After a while going back and forth, what was the bottom line? This person said, if it wasn't for me in the army, Syria would come invade. And so my answer was, okay, it took me 25 minutes, 30 minutes to make you to show you that you're not because, that you're a heretic. What are you talking about? I keep Shabbos, I keep kashrus, I keep all these other things. I said, let me ask you, do you believe in the power of Torah? They said, yes. Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam, most important thing in the world. Yes. Okay. So then a person will say, well, even time of King David, you need a standing army. True. That's very true. But you also need people sitting and learning. Because if you don't have people sitting and learning, we wouldn't be here. You don't have that blessing. You don't have anybody sitting and learning. Yeah. Now, if it's a milchemes mitzvah, if it's a mitzvah to go to war, and God's telling you through the Urim and Thummim, and the high priest says, yeah, got to go to war, everybody goes. And then it's an obligation to go. Everybody goes, even a person just recently married, where he really, is not really allowed to go out to war. Not really allowed to leave so far from his house and this and that. Even them, you take him out, drag him out. That's the obligation. If it's not a milchemes mitzvah, what we call milchemes reshus, right? Meaning that it's a non-obligatory war, obligatory war. I don't have to go. Definitely don't have to go. You need a standing army. No one says no. But the person said, if it wouldn't be for us in the army, Syria would come and invade. So do we need a standing army? Yes. Right? No question. But it's not the standing army, it's keeping Jewish people safe. It's the people who learn Torah keeping the Jewish people safe. You got to put your best foot forward also. True. But you can't have one without the other. It doesn't work. And if only you had people sitting and learning those in the army, then unless we're on the highest level there is, and then God's going to take care of our needs without us even having to fight, okay. But we're not holding it. Not even close. We need both. You need both, but if someone tells you, and supposedly this is a religious person, right? And he tells you, well, if it wasn't for me, Syria would come and invade, I beg to differ. It's not the power of the Israeli army. I can bring up hundreds of incidents where they look really pretty silly in many ways. I think the mighty Israeli army screw up after screw up. Yeah. You need them? I don't think people should spit on them. They're risking their lives. True. 100% true. They deserve to be respected. No question. Yeah, but at the same time, it's not about might. Yeah, it's not about, it's not about, what's the word? It's not about the might of my hand did this, as the Torah says. It's not about the might of my hand. It's a big hand above. Yeah, there are many things, God forbid, that could happen in the land. You can't stop. It's impossible to stop. I'll just mention a few. A few years back, there were a lot of terrorist attacks. We had Arabs going on buses, just attacking people. Now, what would happen if they did that in like 10 different places in Israel? Shut the country down. Paralyze the country. So there are people that were going on buses with, things to try and protect themselves. But, eventually it stopped. Now, the army will tell you why it stopped. Because we infiltrated these different places and we shook them down and we did this, we did that. But at the end of the day, you know why it stopped? Because God wanted it to stop. There's no rhyme or reason. Not about weather, not about other things. They wanted to send hundreds and thousands of people to do all kinds of things in one day in different places. You can't, there's no way to stop it. Unless you just shut down, quote unquote, occupied territory. The only way. You totally shut it down, you don't let anyone in. It's the only way. Yeah, but they're not gonna do that. So, if they have proper, visas and who knows what. And work permits. Yeah, so they'll let them in. So, they're all over the place, building things. That's what they do. Many of them, they work in stores, work in construction. There's no way to stop it. Now, I hope there are no Arabs here listening, right? I don't want to give them any good ideas. But at the end of the day, could they really paralyze this country? Yes. In a very quick way. The army would be spread too thin. There's no way to stop it. Right? I'm not giving them any ideas, but there's no way to stop it. There's totally no way to stop it. Yeah. So what? So it flares up and it happens different times, this, that, whenever, but the reality is, right? The reality is you can't stop it. Well, there's just no way. I remember there was someone made a video, ex-American, I mean, probably a dual citizenship, but, he makes a video and he takes out his baseball bat and he says, anyone comes near me, I got my Louisville Slugger. I got my baseball bat right here. Yeah. It's not like these people fight fair and they're going to say, okay, you have a knife, I have a baseball bat. Like, okay, let's go at it. Of course not. They're going to catch you off guard. They'll stab you in the back when you're not looking. While they're stabbing you, your baseball bat might not help. There were some people carrying irons, other things, what do you call it? Things wooden things that you spread out dough with. I mean, it was nuts. We didn't know if you get on a bus, who knows? An Arab walks on, who knows? Is there any possible way in general? Did I say we're not talking about politics? There's no possible way in general to stop such a thing. If they want to do it up north, down south, in the middle, all over, all of a sudden they had a coordinated thing that they sent out hundreds of people. How do you stop it? How in the world do you stop it? You don't have enough manpower. There's not manpower. Yeah, it's only by the grace of God we're here. There's no question, but it's through the power of Torah. If it wouldn't be for the power of Torah, we'd be in big trouble. We'd be in huge trouble. So yeah, you're right. You need both. But if someone were to say, and this is supposedly a religious person, that's what I want to point out, is that if a person says, if it wasn't for me, it'd be a heck of a lot worse here. Syria could invade, other things would happen. But what was the person's point? Other Orthodox Jews, some of them, or maybe a lot of them, don't do the army. So his claim it was that it wasn't just not a question of not doing the army. It's a matter of numbers. So he said, if you would have joined, more religious people would have been in my group and joined the army, would have made my army time easier. Yeah, okay. That may be true. 100%, that may be true. But then you're saying something heretical. And you're saying it's because of me. It's because of the mighty army. Right? It's the power of my hands, not the power of your hands. Power of your hands only help if you have God, God behind you. Yeah, it's not about you. It's about God calling the shots here. Huh? No pun intended. Yeah. So each person we see, according to the priests, we're busy counting and telling what they did and what they're, sorry, not the priests, the princes, right, of different families. And we're recounting the numbers and what they did. What does it show? Everyone has a purpose. Everybody has a purpose over here. And not one person can do the same thing as someone else. And when it comes to doing things and reaching potential, no one can reach my potential. Maybe people can help me reach my potential, but no one can reach my same potential. Why? Because no one has the same potential. Some people have greater potential, some people have less potential, whatever it may be, but every single person has a purpose. Now you're going to say, how do I know? Right? How do I know? Because each soul comes into a body. Even you want to say about reincarnation, comes back into a body a second time or a third time, regardless. Right? Regardless, God sends that soul with a message. So when that soul's learning Torah with the angel, and then it forgets everything, they're going to say, what happened to the message? How does the person know what they're supposed to be doing? So I'd say very simple. Everybody knows what they're good at, what they're not good at. God put into every single person. He put in the DNA, and he put inside them the ability to understand what they're supposed to do, where they're, what they're good at. Everyone has things that they're good at. Everyone has things that you're not so good at. Okay, right? But God wants you to utilize whatever you have in order to reach whatever potential you have. For whatever message God gave you, which we don't know, but he gave you certain koach, certain power. How do we know? Because it's inside of everybody. Everybody has things they're good at. Everybody. Some more, some less, but they all have something they're good at. Not only that, the Book of Leviticus says in Shar B'tachon, in the gate of belief, belief in God, belief and faith in God, let's say better. He says God gave everyone the ability to make parnasa, to make a living. How? How do you do that? So he says God, either my language, he either gave you brains, right? He made you more intelligent than other people, to be able to do other things, whatever they may be. More sophisticated things, let's say, that you need more brain power for, okay? And what if you weren't granted that? There are people didn't do well in school, could have had ADHD, others, who knows what. Yeah, they didn't do well. You know, they didn't do well scholastically. So how are they supposed to make money? Right? How is it possible for them to make money? So what does the Book of Leviticus say? He gave them brawn. He gave them muscles. Made them strong. They able to do physical work. Whatever it is. Construction, farming, who knows? Whatever physical labor. Again, I'm not saying anyone in physical labor is not intelligent. They could be very intelligent. I'm not saying not. But he gave people two things. One or two things. Or he could sometimes give you both. He can give you both as well. Either a person will have intelligence to make money, or they'll have strength. Right? And when they have strength, and they don't have the brain, so to speak, they're not, not as scholastic or whatever the case is. So there, God's going to allow them to make money, through physical labor, whatever that physical labor is. But say maybe they won't make as much money. They could have got a college degree. Okay, it's a bunch of rubbish, as the English would say. Rubbish. They didn't need a college degree. One of the biggest lies out there, top 5. One of the top 5 biggest lies out there. Does it help? Maybe it does in certain things. For the most part, you wouldn't need a college education, right? If a person took a course in computer graphics, they go into computer graphics. They don't need a course. They don't need a, what do you call it? They need a degree for that? They don't need a degree. And I'd say, what about, writing and different things? They don't need that. And if they do, they'll hire someone else to do it. Maybe they'll learn a little bit about it. Okay. Well, there are plenty of things people do. They don't need degrees. People say, if I had a choice, someone who had a degree and someone not, they'd more likely choose someone who had a degree. But what if the other person has great, better life experience? They have greater life experience than this other person, even though the other person has a degree. Right? Someone could choose someone like that. But degree is important, quote unquote. Person has life experience that's worth more. It's definitely worth more. Okay, getting a little bit off topic here, but the point is that everyone has a mission. Everyone has a purpose. God put it into everyone. So again, someone's going to say, how do I know? How do I know? Everyone has things they're good at. God put it in a person. He put it inside every single person and wired them a certain way. So it'll come out eventually. Most people know what they're good at. I've heard people that, speak in front of other people that I'm not good at anything. This is what I'm good at, talking. Just so happens I'm good at talking, okay? That's also a gift. Also totally a gift. It doesn't happen overnight. Some people have a natural talent. Some people definitely have a natural talent. I remember there was a yeshiva near my house, community I used to live in many years ago. So, they sort of gave me my start, give me some classes in Jewish philosophy, learning a certain book, whatever. So everyone wanted to come, it was like a voluntary thing. At night, maybe said, okay, you want to get out and start doing things. You really got to sit and learn all day. But, a few nights a week, you want to do that, fine. You want to just get it out of your system, whatever, fine. So I remember, learning certain things, and and people would say, it's like, wow, that's so great. So, where'd you learn how to teach? I have no idea how to teach. None. I said, you should know, you guys are my guinea pig. I said, why do you think I'm here at night? I'm not here during the day. Yeah. I'm not that good, right? So, I was young, right? I was a few years after marriage. I was 25, 26, something like that, whatever it was. And yeah. So, a lot of it, anyone, who speaks in public, they all say the same thing, like certain things enter their minds, they bring up things they never thought of, and it's a specialty out of the Shmaya. We call heavenly help, over here. Other things I need to get down better, sure, tweak certain things 100%, right? But certain, right? But everybody has talent. And have to know, how to use it, how to hone in on it, so to speak. It's not that hard to find out what it is, right? So the point is, just like we said, the princes all have, what they're supposed to do. They have, these are going to do this job, someone else has another job, right? Everyone's part of the same team. See, people look at it and they'll say, well, it's not fair. It's not fair. I wasn't born a Kohen. So as we always say, life has nothing to do with whether it's fair or not. You're born a certain way. That's the way it is. I mean, today, born a certain way, you could change. Right? Who said you're supposed to stay that way? But okay, we're not going to go there. Right? But if a person's not a Kohen, and they're like everybody else, so it doesn't matter what tribe you're from. We'll find out. I know people are very big into this. I'm probably deflating their egos a little bit, or egos here, as we say in Israel, but it really doesn't matter. There's no practical ramifications. No practical ramifications. So that's one thing I wanted to point out, that not everyone has the same jobs. And then obviously the biggest thing is not just between a Kohen and a Levi and everybody else, or between a man and a woman. They also have different things, different obligations. Women are exempt. Jewish women exempt by mitzvahs and bound by time because they have other responsibilities. Doesn't mean they can't sit in the sukkah. Doesn't mean if you're Ashkenazic, you're allowed to take a love and make a blessing. Sephardic people would not make a blessing because they're exempt. Yeah. Okay. There are some differences there. Fine. But a woman's not the same as a man. I mean, they're trying to show that a woman can be a man today. Or let's say better, a man like a woman, but essentially still a man. Nothing's changed. Right? Still a man over here. But at the same time, they're different. They're created differently. They have different obligations spiritually. So people have that issue also, but I want to do this and I want to do that. It's not about what I want to do. Yeah, let's make clear. This is exactly what the Ibn Ezra here says. Ibn Ezra here is saying, it's that all Kohanim are Levites, but not all Levites are Kohanim. Why not? Because that's the way God set it up. They're not the same. They don't have the same jobs. Imagine, we'll give a sports analogy. Yeah, imagine someone's a pitcher. But really, you're not so into pitching so much. He wants to be the right fielder. But he's not such a great right fielder. He's a better pitcher. Now, for the sake of the team, what's the manager going to say? You're going to be a pitcher. You're not going to be a right fielder. Right? Unless you start practicing and you become like the greatest thing since we need you as a pitcher. You have so many good pitchers, you're a good pitcher. So, and if a person doesn't do that, then no, I just want to do this. So what happens? He's doing it for himself, but he's letting down the team because the team needs him to do something else. Right? It's not about what I want to do. Spiritual terms, all the more so. God doesn't care what I want to do. Doesn't care what anyone wants to do. He said people have different roles. This is what threw off Korah. We'll get there one day. When I'm about 103. Yeah. Korah said favoritism. You made Aaron the high priest. Very nice. He's your brother. Protects thee, as we would say here in Israel. Got connections. And they started making fun of him. He took 250 great people of the generation, and what happened? They all got sucked up. Or let's say better, they all got thrown into the ground. Pit destroyed them. Yeah, how can you make such a mistake? Moses showing favoritism? What about all the time it says by the Be'er Shem Moshe Lamor? God spoke to Moses saying, or God spoke to Moshe and Aaron saying, tell the Jewish people this, that, and the other thing. Says where Moshe finds in a blessed memory, Thor giant in America, the last generation, according to everybody. And he brings down a Drash Moshe and Parshas Korach. What does he say? Korach didn't get the message. He didn't internalize the message. He came out of Egypt, one of the 20%. Right? He saw God face to face on Mount Sinai, whatever that means. He held the ark and he didn't die. He wasn't a stupid person. So how can you make such a mistake? Says Moshe Feinstein, he didn't get the message. He did not get the message. Very, very hard to understand. Seeing all these miracles, and everything that Moses did and all the plagues and everything else. Thinks Moses is doing it for himself? Very like these things are very hard to imagine. Moses has to take an accounting, of the building and the taking down of the tabernacle of all the things that went in it. Why? Because, people were suspicious. Maybe he took stuff for himself. Right? This week's parsha, we're going to read here, Parsha Baloscha. It says at the end of the parsha, by Miriam, she speaks Lashon Hara against Moshe, and the Torah says he's the most humble of all people. Most humble of all people. You want to think he's a thief? He's banking stuff for himself? Hard to imagine. But what did Moses do? He wanted to make sure there was a full accounting so no one would suspect him. He's the one that went up to the mountain, spoke to God face to face, 40 days, brought the 10 Commandments, all this. Right? God says he's my trusted servant. You believe him, whatever he tells you. You want to tell me shortchanging the Jewish people? He's pocketing, a few gold bars for himself and his family. Going to buy, I don't know, some house in the desert. It's going to make out of who knows what. Very hard to imagine. Very hard to imagine. But a lot of these things, we cannot look at a face value. Cannot look at a face value. The Jewish people, in this week's parsha as well, at least for us here in Israel, they complain. We missed the watermelon. We missed the fish. We missed the fish in Auschwitz. Imagine what they went through in Egypt. They say we missed the fish. We missed the food. We missed dessert. What do you mean? We want meat. God says, oh, you want meat? I'll give you meat. You're not happy with the man? You're not happy with the man? I'll give you meat. Not a problem. Not for a week, not for 10 days. I'm going to give it to you for a month till it comes out of your ears. Literally comes out of your nose. What's God so upset about? How would we understand this simple language? They're in the desert. There's no food. Yeah, old Mother Hubbard ain't nothing in the cupboard. Day in and day out, they're relying on this manna to fall. Because it fell yesterday, the day before, the month before. And it tastes like whatever you want. What are they complaining about? Very hard to understand. Face value, very hard to understand. They want to go back to Egypt? They want to go back and get beaten and be slaves. Yeah, because they missed the fish. They forgot what they went through just a short time before. What simple explanation? God's testing them in Emunah. And if they had proper Emunah, proper faith and belief in him, they wouldn't complain by the spies. Now, because they complain with the sin of the spies, what happens? They don't go in the land of Egypt. They don't go to the land of Israel. They have to circle around. They have to go around China to get to Israel, but that generation has to die before they go in. Greatest generation in the history of man. Very hard to understand. Because they can say, if that's the greatest generation in the history of man, and they did this, they did that, and they did the other thing, right? There's no hope for us. Well, we have to keep Torah mitzvahs to the best of our ability. That's what we're doing on Shavuot. Renewing our commitments. Rabbi Brock's got a parsha sheet every week. Comes out. And just whatever, very, very strong in Jewish philosophy, just like his grandfather. One of the things he was saying is that, he says people go to all kinds of, the graves of righteous people, and pray there. They need a shidduch, someone sick. They're looking for for a spouse. Parnasa. Livelihood is very hard. So they go all around the world, screaming out, not that they're praying to these righteous people, but through the merit of these righteous people, they should be granted this, that, and the other thing. Health, a big one. Yeah. So he asked the question. He said, okay, I get it. People go there and, go to these places, and they'll ask in the merit of this person, should have merit for me. That's not idolatry because I'm not praying to them. It's only through their merit, etc., without even going into all that. But he said something very fundamental. He says, why aren't people going to these righteous people or even themselves just screaming out and say, God, I want ruchnius. I want spirituality. I want to be so close to you. Open up the fountain, right? Open up the fountain of knowledge. Open it up so wide so I can bask and understand at a much higher level. Give me the yoke of Torah. That's what we should be screaming, says Rabbi Brog. These other things I'm not saying are not important. They're also important. Livelihood, health, finding a spouse. A lot of things important, true. But he was saying, why aren't people screaming out? Why aren't yeshiva guys screaming out, I want Torah. I want to be the best I can be in Torah. Open up all the fountains. He says, because we don't understand. We don't really want it. See, if we, person in dire straits, they need help, whatever. Yeah, of course they're going to pray like it's no tomorrow. They need livelihood. Or if they get a bad diagnosis. Yeah, they don't want everyone to pray to get blessings from. Because they don't want to die. Yeah, they want to live. What about spiritual life? He says, why aren't you on your hands and knees begging for spiritual life? Begging for Torah knowledge? Begging that you shouldn't have any stupid things in your head taking you away from it? He says, we're lacking. We're lacking in a major way. Major way. Not to say these other things are not important, not saying that. But what about understanding Torah? Is that important? Sure, it's important. You're going to say, when a very weak, everyone will say, come on, who am I? I'm just a non-Jew trying to get by, trying to learn Torah to the best of my ability. How bad do we want it? How bad do we want it? He said, God can open up fountains of knowledge overnight if a person wants it. Why don't people want it? Why aren't people screaming out for it? What's the bottom line? Either they think they're not going to get answered, no matter how much, or they just don't want to put in the effort. But if God can do anything, God is Kol Yachol. God can do anything. B'shuas Hashem ke'eref ayin. Salvation of God comes with the blink of an eyelash. Can change anything in physical terms. Why can't he do it in spiritual terms? All the more so in spiritual terms. I'm not saying you go to sleep, you have these questions, all of a sudden God sends you an angel to answer all the questions. No! He's going to give you the ability to open up fountains of knowledge. You know what? My Brog says it's a mind-boggling idea. It makes no sense. These other things, people go all over the world, going to righteous people, asking them for blessings, going to the graves of the righteous, this, that, and the other thing. What about knowledge? What about spiritual knowledge? And ain't anyone going out for that? Why? Because they don't want it. It's not that important to them. Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam. There's nothing more important than supporting Torah. What are people doing? What are people doing sitting learning all day? Are they thinking this way? They should. I'm not going to say everyone who's sitting learning all day never has this in mind and they're just doing it because, it's an easy way out or they don't want to go to work or whatever. I'm not saying that. Plenty of people there growing and growing. That's true. But if I would ask most people, right? I don't know what the stat is. I'd be afraid to find out. I'd hope I'd be totally wrong. If I would ask most people, which is a very small percentage of the Jewish people today, less than 1/4%, if that, someone over the age of 25 sitting and learning full-time, less than 1/4%. If I were to take a survey and say, how badly do you want to be a rabbinic scholar? And the whole point of being a rabbinic scholar is not to say, look how much I know. And look how much money it's going to make me. And look, people are going to give me honor and all that. That's forbidden. That 100% is forbidden. You're not allowed to use the Torah for that. I mean, you're not supposed to make ends meet, but you're not allowed to use the Torah for that. It's going to lead to gaiva, right? Certainly being conceited. What does the Mishnah Perkei Avos say? We should serve God even if we're not going to get reward. That's the highest level. So how many people out there, and I could be totally wrong, and I hope I am, how many people over the age of 25 sitting and learning full-time are begging God on a daily basis to open up the fountains of Torah, of knowledge? Now, you're going to say, or someone's going to say, how do you know what people think? You're right, I don't. I come in contact with a lot of people. Seen a lot of people throughout the years. I very rarely hear this at all from anybody speaking. My Rebbe's Rebbe, Moshe Snyder. I'll take it one step further. Moshe Snyder, blessed memory, who produced countless Torah giants, of this generation, would tell, and he was talking to kids, 15, 16, 17 years old, older, a little bit older, and telling them, you have the ability to become the next Chofetz Chaim, the next Rabbi Akiva Eger, bless the memory, the next Chassam Sofer, the next Vilna Gaon. Well, maybe not, but you could be like any great rabbinic scholar of previous generation. Some people answer, what are you talking about? Rav Chaim Brisker had a photographic memory, let's say. And he was a genius. Not a genius. I don't have that capability. Moshe Snyder would say, how do you know what your capability is? You have no idea. Rav Baruch Ber Leibovitz, of blessed memory, started the Kamenetz Yeshiva. Rav Baruch Ber said, I strive to become like Rabbi Akiva Eger. I tried to learn and, be like Rabbi Akiva Eger in his knowledge. But you know what? I became Rav Baruch Ber. But he said, if I would have strived to be like Rav Baruch Ber, like myself, I wouldn't have amounted to anything. So people will say, and it is kind of depressing today because people will think, oh, it's a very weak generation and it's so hard and it's this and, etc. I'm just learning, before Shavuos, Rav Aaron Cutler started the Lakewood Yeshiva in New Jersey. Aaron Cutler, bless the memory, again, Torah giants of the last generation, brought Torah to America, no question about it. It wasn't for him, he wouldn't have all these Lakewood Coles in different cities, and he brought the idea of people sitting and learning, guys sitting and learning after marriage, but he was saying that when a guy's learning yeshiva, 15, 16, 17, 18, before he gets married, you should already have a lot, at least 2 Siddharim of Talmud under his belt. At least 2. At least 2. Yeah, to get into the yeshiva of Baranovich, Yeshiva Katana, 13, 14 years old, he had to know 200 pages of Talmud backwards and forwards. I don't know how many people pass that today. But you have to strive. You have to want. But people are going to say, but it's too hard. It's hard day in and day out. It's a grind. Yeah, it might be. And no one likes to review either. But if you don't review, you don't remember anything. But at the same time, you're right, it's hard. You have to have goals. You have to be striving. You have to want it more, as King Solomon says, more than rubies, diamonds, and emeralds. More than money. I would say years ago, if we would work so hard in Torah like Bill Gates, interested in making money, working 16, 18 hours a day, this and that, and we focused on Torah, we'd be Torah giants today. No question. No question. You have to eat, drink, and sleep it. So that's one thing. That's one. One other thing I want to mention. I know there are a bunch of questions here I'll get to. One other thing I wanted to mention, it spoke about a Levi being a Kohen being a Levi. Yeah. One thing is clear. There cannot be a blemish. If there's a blemish somewhere in the family, yeah, a conversion that wasn't done properly, let's say. Yeah. So then there's a question. There's a question over here on a simple Jew and on a regular Jew. How do we assume a regular Jew is Jewish? So I had a rabbi before I got married in the States. He knew 5 generations, of my family, knowing that we were Jews. No, there wasn't any intermarriage, at least that point, right? But he knew 5 generations. So even though, the chief rabbi didn't really know who he was, but, that verified. So, but if there's a question, there's intermarriage somewhere down the line, there's a bad conversion, or there's a question on a conversion, or there's a question on other things, potentially, that brings in the person's status into question. If there's no question, again, we don't have to go proving it, but if there's no question, there are no questions over here that genealogy is going to play a part, then I do not have to assume that the person is not Jewish. Yeah, because some people hold or think that, they may take a DNA test, they may have quote unquote Jewish blood, which doesn't prove anything. And no rabbinical court is going to accept it anyway, even with all the documentation, right, in general. But besides that, the question is, but I may have Jewish blood. Well, for us, it doesn't matter. I mean, it's a harsh thing to say, but, there's no practical ramification. No one's really going to take it seriously. Yeah. So a person not Jewish, they're not Jewish. 100%, they're not going to be Jewish. But, by a Jew, I don't have to go on assumptions there's something wrong with his genealogy to prove that they're not Jewish, unless I have reason to think so. If I have reason to think there's a problem in genealogy, then you look into the past. Then you look into genealogy over here. If I don't have any reason to think so, there are no contradictions, there are no one's coming out of the woodwork and say, oh, so-and-so was really, was really not Jewish. They did a hush-hush conversion. No one knew about it. Okay. There are things that could come out. And if it did, that brings into question. If there's nothing that brings it into a question, then my assumption is the person's a Jew. Again, a lot of people are into DNA and DNA testing. Okay. They want to think, okay, this is my family and this is where I grew up and, and whatever. It has no weight in Jewish law. Right? It has no weight. I'm not saying the person can't do it. They could. It makes them feel better. They certainly can do it. No question. Halachically speaking, it has no weight. I've had some people that really probably were Jewish. Probably 100% were Jewish. They didn't have papers to prove. But they weren't, quote unquote, Jewish enough that they were told to keep Shabbos. In other words, the doubt wasn't significant enough to say, okay, you really have the status of a Jew. We're not sure. We'll convert you now, but you shouldn't break Shabbos because we think you're really a Jew. I haven't had anybody that's come that close. But I've had a few people that they could have been Jewish. They just didn't have proof. It wasn't because of DNA. It had nothing to do with DNA test. Right? But they could have been. But in essence, they had no proof. And in either case, top rabbinical courts did not tell them not to break Shabbos. So what does that say? It's not just that proof. Right? Again, it's not about DNA. This is better than DNA. A lot better than DNA. DNA test. Yeah. But these top rabbinic courts, if they would have really thought they were Jewish, really thought they were Jewish, yeah, then they would have told them you can't break Shabbos. They would have said they're really a Jew. We're going to go on the side that's probably really Jewish. And therefore, if that's the case, then you can't break Shabbos. Now, there are cases like that. It's rare. Right? I'm going to say 100%. It's rare. It's not so common, but there are cases. There are cases where someone could be a bona fide Jew. Something got messed up somewhere. They can't prove it. So, in such a case, the rabbinical court may say, we think you're really Jewish, just lacking the proof, right? So we're gonna convert you, but you can't, you have to keep Shabbos the way you need to keep it. This has nothing to do with DNA. This is not a DNA test. DNA test is something totally different, which again, our rabbinical court's not even going to look at the information. But there is a question: what would happen? Gemara asked this question also. What happens if someone's given a psak? Right? Someone's given. Someone asks a question. Rabbi answers them, and they gave the wrong psak. They gave the wrong answer, and because of that wrong answer, person did certain things that were forbidden. Yeah, who gets the aveira? Who gets the sin? I might speak about more of this on Tuesday, but I just want to flush this out for 1 second while I'm on the topic. Yeah, who gets the transgression? Who gets the transgression? That rabbi or that rabbinical court. So the Gemara says that if the Supreme Court, the Sanhedrin makes a psak, and they say you have to do this, that, and the other thing, or not do this, that, and the other thing, and they're wrong. Yeah, let's say they made a mistake. Doesn't mean they're perfect. They made a mistake. They bear the brunt of it. The other person will get the sin, but there's the question. What if in general, someone made such an egregious mistake that they say someone's a non-Jew. Someone's a non, and this could be really bad. And that is that they don't believe in the proof, and they find out later that person was really a Jew. Let's say. Right? Let's say. So what happens? They're a non-Jew, so they eat pork, they do all kinds of things that they're allowed to do as a non-Jew. And they find out later. Actually, the rabbinical court, they made a mistake. I'll give another case, but we use this for an example. Yeah. So what happens? Now, if they eat treif, it affects their soul if they're a Jew. That you don't get around. There's no getting around. A person gave the wrong answer. They ended up eating something not kosher. It affects them. Yeah, there are ramifications. But who gets the sin? Who gets the sin is the person who gave the wrong psak. The rabbinical court who gave the wrong psak. I'll give a more blatant example. Mary told me this story. A very scary story. A woman comes to him. I think I've told the story before. A woman comes to him, and her husband left. Her husband picked up and disappeared. Right? Totally disappeared. So she went to a certain rabbinical court. And after the rabbinical court looked into it, they said, okay, he disappeared. It's probably no longer in this world. They gave her permission to remarry. So what happens? She gets remarried. She has kids. 25 years later, this husband shows up. Now, there's a problem here. Major problem. She's not allowed to be married to her husband now. And all her kids are mamzerim. They're all children that can only marry someone of the same union or a convert, which we mentioned before. So basically, all these families now have to be uprooted. Now, Beis Din made a serious mistake. I don't know. He didn't tell me what it was based on, which Beis Din it was. Doesn't really matter. I mean, I would like to know, what they did, but okay. I wasn't given that information. So now this woman comes in front of him. I'm glad he gets these questions on me. Yeah, because I would have passed it on for sure. And she says, what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do? If this guy comes back, which he did, he has to uproot all those families. Wife cannot be married to her husband, and all her kids that are all, all religious, married, having families, they all have to get divorced. So I asked him, I said, so what the Rav do? He said, I'm still looking for a way out of this somehow. So I'm still digging. I'm still digging to try and find some way to say it's okay. Right? It's like, it's pretty black and white. Yeah. So I said, how are you going to find a way out? He goes, I'm still looking. He said, I'm still looking for an answer. I said, okay. A few weeks later, I asked him, I said, I'm just curious, what happened in this case? I said, well, what did the Rav say in this case? So he told me, he said, the way he learned it and it came out, he said, all these kids are mamzer. She has to divorce, she has to get divorced from her husband and all her kids have to get divorced. He has to uproot all these families, so I can't do it. So I don't have the heart to do it. So he sent it to Rav Eliyashi. He was the Torah giant of the last generation, in halacha. And so he sent it to him. I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened by him. But that's a serious mistake. That is a serious mistake. Moshe Feinstein, the last generation, one of the Torah giants of the last generation, we mentioned, after the war, people want to get remarried, and their husbands or wives, they have no recollection, they're alive, they're dead, this, that. And he answered all these questions. I mean, it's a complicated question. Complicated question. Same thing by Lahabdil, make a big distinction what happened in the World Trade Center. They needed certain proof that person's spouse walked in, somebody saw them, there was a camera, something that saw them walk in the building that day because they didn't come back, in order to permit them to remarry, or not, at least not have the status of being a chained woman, so to speak. Yeah. Or a guy for that matter, that he wants to remarry. Let's say, his wife was there. He wants to have clarity. Does that allow him to remarry or not, or whatever? These you need big shoulders to answer, but there were certain criteria. The Gemara at the end of Yevamos, last chapter, 2 chapters, right, speaks about a lot of cases like this. Very, very complex. Very, very complex. Yeah. So when you're answering life and death situations, God forbid, rabbi makes a mistake, it could cost someone their life, spiritual life, physical life, in different ways. So again, there were big people, and there still are big people who can answer these questions. There are not too many of them left, but you have people that have real big shoulders, life and death situations, medical ethics, take them off the respirator, not take them off the respirator. There are people that answer these questions. Yeah, but you got to be steeped in. You got to be all in. So if somebody makes a mistake, there can be serious repercussions. Serious repercussions. But in the easier case, where let's say the rabbi, let's say the rabbinical court made a mistake, and now the person's doing, they're being a Noahide, they're eating whatever they want, but they're really Jewish. Who gets the transgression? You do. Whoever gave that psak gets the transgression. But there is one issue. Because if this Jew now, so to speak, was eating non-kosher, it affects their soul. So you cause now their soul to be blemished. That's your fault. Yeah, there is a certain level of repentance for that, but that's your fault. You gave a bad answer. They would be liable for such a thing. But the damage is done. Damage is done. So, a person has to, first of all, has to know all the facts. They have to hear all the facts. And see, but, just back to this whole thing, not everyone can do just what they want. We're limited. We're 100% limited. What we can do. Cohen can't be a Levi. Levi can't be a Cohen. A Cohen can be a Levi. Levi is not necessarily a Cohen, but they don't do the same things. They don't serve the same way. Men and women, they're different. So the way things are set up, people are going to say it's not fair. Again, we have to get this idea out of our heads. It's not about what's fair or not. It's what God said. Kohanim or Spitz are better above everyone else. That's the way it works. Now, today it might not make any real practical difference. Again, except for the people that they can marry. They can't defile themselves with a dead person. In general, most things don't matter today. In general. Again, there are certain things, but most things don't matter. But we get caught up in these things, and we say, okay, there are no Kohanim today, but the Torah says clear. You got to listen to Kohanim in every generation. Those are the rabbis. Then you have no choice. You no one. Who else are you going to listen to? People are going to say, God's come to speak to me. Yeah, if God's speaking to you, go see a psychiatrist. God's not speaking to anyone today. He's not speaking to anybody. When it comes to prophecy, even at the lowest level, you know that God is speaking to you. Again, let's make that clear. You know 100% this is prophecy. And today, the Gemara says prophecy only given in the hands of imbeciles or little children. Nobody can say that. Nobody. I don't care. They feel something. They this or that. Nobody. There are great rabbis today that might have what we call one of the lowest forms of prophecy, and that is divine inspiration. We call Ruach HaKodesh. Okay? That's been people who've been steeped in Torah mitzvahs their whole lives. Yeah. And it's not someone just coming off the street that's going to be able to do that. Yeah, I see a lot of questions. I want to deal with them. Let's deal with some of them now. 1 second here. Someone asked, can a mitzvah turn into a sin? I got confused. Which part should we read outside of Israel? Now, yeah, we read Israel on Shabbos, read Parshas Nasa. Everyone else outside of Israel read whatever they read for Shavuos. It was still Shavuos outside of Israel. In Israel, we had Shavuos, and then Friday night was a regular Shabbos. By us, it was a regular Shabbos. All right, so we read Parshas Naso, and everyone's going to read Parshas Naso this coming week, this coming Shabbos, and therefore they're going to catch up by the end of I don't know, I'm not exactly sure. They're going to catch up in a number of weeks. It's going to be a double parsha for outside of Israel that eventually they're going to they're going to get caught up. Somebody asked, 1 second, let me just see. Somebody asks, can a mitzvah turn into a sin? Can a mitzvah turn into a sin? I don't know. There are things a person can do. I'll say it like this. There are things a person can do that according to the letter of the law, that they're doing okay, right? They're doing what is right. But according to the spiritual, according to the spiritual letter of the law, so to speak, then they're disgusting in God's eyes. So they could do it. They could be, I wouldn't say doing a mitzvah. I'll give an example. Let's say come Shabbos, I'll make it relevant to me. Let's say, come Shabbos, it would be game 7 of the NBA Finals between the Lakers and the Celtics, which, I grew up Lakers and the Celtics, when I was younger. So what would happen if game 7 was on Shabbos? Yeah, now, could you watch it? I'm not allowed to watch TV really on Shabbos, but let's say I would leave the TV on, which I don't have, but let's say I'd leave the TV on if I had one. I wouldn't touch the volume. I wouldn't touch any remote control. I'd leave it on that station. Eat my Shabbos meal. Game's going to start, I don't know, let's say 8 o'clock, 8:30, 8:30 at night. And let's say, Shabbos comes in, you already took in Shabbos. Very good. So what do? So you eat, you make kiddush, you ate the meal, give over a little bit of divrei Torah, then you go sit on the couch and watch the game. Then you watch the game. Technically speaking, is there anything a person did to transgress over here? They didn't transgress. They didn't turn on the TV. I'm not even talking about using a timer. Timer is another thing. Forget it. You left the TV on. Did you transgress anything? The laws of Shabbos? No. But that's called being manuvu b'reshus haTorah. That's called being disgusting in God's eyes. So that's a little bit of a different case. Why? Because the person really didn't do anything wrong. If a person walked down the street, they went to a store, outside the store and window shop. They didn't walk in. They totally didn't walk in. Is that allowed? Again, similar issue. I heard a story recently. Someone told the story on Shabbos. They were at a certain place. Before Shabbos, they want to go to a ball game on Shabbos. So what they do? They took their tickets. They don't want to carry. This is how far it goes. Yeah, they didn't want to carry. So what they do? So right near the stadium, they hid it. They hid the ticket. I guess they were in walking distance of the stadium, wherever it was, and they buried the ticket somewhere. Wherever they buried it, they knew exactly where it was. They had a secret hiding place. Right? Come Shabbos, I guess it was, within either right near the stadium, then they're probably carrying because you're right in that same area. You don't have, again, for argument's sake, you don't have a problem if there's no air to carry, fine. So let's say you didn't have a problem. Didn't have a problem. So they dig this thing up wherever they hid it. Right? And let's say they didn't have to go through any muksa or anything else they weren't allowed to do. They did everything 100% in a kosher way. They got the tickets. They come Shabbos day. They show the tickets. They let them in. No electronic gates, no nothing. Yeah. Be a problem. Let's say they had to, go through a revolving door and there's a light and this. Okay, let's say 100% they have no issue, no Shabbos issue. Is that permissible? Would that be permissible? Yeah. So technically, you could say they didn't do anything wrong. What's the problem? They're also called being disgusting in God's eyes. Maneuver b'shus Torah. Why? Because it's not in the spirit of Shabbos. But technically, you understand, I didn't do anything wrong. There's nothing wrong over here. So what's the problem? That's what God wants you to do. He doesn't want you to be in a ballgame. He does not want you to, see things that are not in the spirit of Shabbos. That's called being disgusting in God's eyes, even if you didn't transgress. So now the question is, can a mitzvah turn into a sin? I don't know. Person has a question, they ask a rabbi, they go to a rabbinical court, and the rabbinical court messes up there, they're liable. The rabbinical court's liable. But the question is what they made a mistake in. That's the whole discussion. Spoke about last year in my trips up north, many, many weeks. It depends what mistake they make. If it's an egregious mistake, not an egregious mistake, right? Whatever it would be. So there's a mitzvah to go to a rabbinical court. Non-Jews, there's an obligation to go to secular court, right? They don't have to go to a rabbinical court, right? For Noahide, they go to secular court. In general, they want to go to a rabbinical court. They can. They don't have to. They don't have an obligation to. So I have to think if there are cases where a mitzvah itself, where's the mitzvah become a transgression? So there's a thing called mitzvah haba ba'aver. When I do the mitzvah, I'm transgressing at the same time. What's the case? One case is, let's say a person stole someone else's lulav, and now with all the intention, they start shaking it on sukkahs like this and like this. That's mitzvah haba ba'aver. That's using a lulav for the sake of the mitzvah, but at the same time, it's a transgression. I was going to use the example, someone stole wheat. Gemara uses this case. Someone stole wheat. They ground it up into flour. They make bread on it. They allowed to make a blessing on it? No. The Gemara says it's called being disgusting. That's being disgusting in God's eyes. It's not a blessing at all. Right? It's called being disgusting in God's eyes. It's not a blessing. Why? Because the wheat you stole. So if I stole the wheat, I ground it into flour, I'm going to make a blessing on bread for it. Right? Those would be a few cases. Someone asks, what if, which parts we read outside of Israel? This week, again, everyone's going to be reading parts now. So what if a person read not so this Shabbos? So you read it again. You can read it again on Shabbos. You made a mistake one Shabbos, so you read it again. Right? That's not a problem. What would happen? I remember when I got married, and we're in Europe, so we missed one parsha. Now, we missed one parsha, so Rabbi in the synagogue read the parsha for us on Shabbos. Or maybe it's during the week. I think it was during the week. Because we missed 1 week. We missed one Shabbos, like one of these weeks, or something like that. Now the question is there an obligation if you missed it? Right. So for every Jew, at least for a guy, there's an obligation to read the Torah twice, Parsha twice, with the Aramaic translation. If you don't understand the Aramaic translation, right, you can read Rashi. Right, you can read Rashi's translation or Rashi's explanation. It's a good thing to do. And to learn it well. It's one of the things the Brisker Rov says. Very strange. People just sort of read through it, but they don't go into it in detail because it's guaranteed for long life. So it's like he thinks just people are lazy. It's like, why don't people delve into it? It grants you them long life. If you read through it and you understand it, okay, you get certain merit for it, for doing it. But the most important thing is going through it properly. Yeah. So if you read it the wrong week, you can read it this week. That's not a problem. If you missed it, right, you have to go back and hear it. Let's say you were a Jew at this point. Do I have to go back and get someone to get a Torah scroll and read it for me? No. You don't have an obligation. Do you have to go out of your way to do it? I know rabbinic authorities will say no. You missed it, you missed it. I have to go back and do it and hear it. There are rabbinic authorities hold such a thing. That you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to worry about it. Others say no, it's a good thing to hear it again, but you don't have to go out of your way to do it. Somebody asks, 1 second. Somebody asks if a person works hard, but I'm probably not meant to reach that high spiritual potential. So question is, we always say, nobody knows what their potential is. Nobody should ever say, I'm good. I'm very happy where I'm holding in the world. That is a kiss of death. That is a kiss of death. And I hear this ringing in my ears because I know someone who said it. Right? They're like, no, I'm good. Or I heard someone say about their son that, mentioned many years ago, this person should go to yeshiva, become religious, become Orthodox. But no, he's good. He's learning his daf yomi. Right? He's learning 2 pages a day, this, that. He's good, yeah, because he's a big fish in a small pond, and whatever. He's never going to get anywhere. He's never going to get anywhere because he's good. Don't want to listen anymore. Yeah, someone says they're good, it's a kiss of spiritual death. That means they don't want to grow. They don't want to learn. That's what it means. And it's a hard thing to hear. I've heard it a number of times and I want to cringe. I can't. They're like, I'm good, he's good. Yeah, you're all good, flushing yourselves down the toilet spiritually. Very hard thing to hear. But in any case, a person, whatever their potential is, we don't know. Nobody knows what their potential is. We do know good things that we have inside of us. And we should hopefully be able to utilize it. To utilize these forces, to help others, whatever it is to do. Everybody has it. Now, the question is, you could have someone who's got greater potential, but they don't utilize it, where someone has lesser potential, but they utilize it in a much bigger way. So they're on a higher level. They'll get a bigger portion of the world to come. Yeah. So, we don't know. We don't know what our potential is. So therefore, we got to do whatever we can to reach whatever that potential is. Learning, chesed, women have an obligation to know what they need to know also. They certainly have an obligation. That mean they're going to be cracking the book 6-8 hours a day? I don't think so. Right? I'm not saying they can't. If they don't have other obligations, they can certainly learn. They can certainly do chesed. Certain things, obviously off limits for them. But, in general, they can have a tremendous amount of knowledge. There's no question. There's no question. The question is, what's their purpose, over here. So isn't it true? Isn't it true that everyone can reach high spiritual levels? question is what the source of their soul, what's up against them, a lot of things. A lot of things. The question is what happens if you don't reach that potential. Yeah, it's whatever your potential is, not compared to anyone else. It's your potential, your own potential. God's not going to ask, why did you become like this one, that one, the other one? God's not going to ask that question. God's going to ask, why didn't you reach your own potential? Right? Famous parable the Medrash brings. Fisherman gets upstairs after 120 years. God says, you learn Torah. So what do you mean? You didn't give me brains to learn Torah. God says, I didn't give you brains to learn Torah. What was your profession? So I was a fisherman. So okay, tell me how tell me what you did. He says, yeah, I took these nets and I made these nets and I went out certain times and I brought the nets and that's how I got fish and whatever. And he turned his whole thing into a business. Yeah. So God says, that's a great story. But, I bet the same God who gave you brains to be able to know how to fish and make a living out of it probably gave you the same brains you could have learned Torah also. You don't want to hear that. I can promise you, you don't want to hear. You don't want to hear that. If we have potential, we don't want to be sitting on our fingers doing nothing. Playing video games and wasting time and having fun. That's what God wants. He wants you to enjoy life. That's true, but the way He wants. The way He wants. And I'll tell you, one of the things I saw, Shavuos night, I was like fighting to stay awake. And then you see all these kids, get to synagogue 10:30 at night, 11 o'clock at night. They're running around. They were with their fathers, and they had in the synagogue where I was a whole bunch of speakers every hour. Spoke, told stories, different things to the kids and whatever. And you see people, it's just the fire of Torah, the fire of Torah. People fighting to stay away. Some people conked out. Then you see during the morning prayers, some people like half conked out. Okay, that's that's all part of it. But God wants you to enjoy also. Come back from synagogue or whatever. You have this nice milcha kiddush. You have all this cheesecake and whatever. Then you conk out. Then you have another meal. Whatever. But all these things are for us to enjoy Torah. Now, is it always going to be fun and games? No. Sometimes it can be a grind. Sometimes it can be very hard. In many ways. You had Friday night. Thursday night. Prepare for Shabbos. Whatever. It's a lot. It's a lot to eat. It's a lot to do. And different things. But these are the memories, especially for kids, is what lasts. These are the memories that they have. Staying up all night, drinking soda and coffee and this and that, keeping themselves up and and all that. It's when you live in a community, it's a different thing. But we don't know what our potential is, and no one should ever rest on their laurels. We always want to grow. Women have to grow also spiritually. They should also be listening to class. I'm not saying you have to listen, every day, all day, but women should also live inspired. And women have it more difficult in certain ways. They have little kids and this and that. They can't just go out to, go to classes and listen to things. They're tired. They're up in the middle of the night and this and that. It's hard. It's very hard. I had one of my daughters, was behind me for Shabbos. She got 3 kids under the age of 4. And they're let's just say they're rambunctious. They have a lot of energy. A lot of energy. Yeah. She's tired. Is she going out, going to classes and listening to things? She's exempt. 100% she's exempt. She's exhausted. She doesn't have time. In general, if she could, she can't, she should, but no one's going to expect that. Rev Eliashiv, the Torah giant of the last generation, said women with kids don't even have to pray. They don't have to pray at all. I'm not even agreed with that. Others said at least they should pray once a day. Try and pray once a day, but it's hard. He was saying that they're totally exempt because, they have other jobs. They have other jobs, taking care of the kids. And I can tell you, if I get 2 hours, 3 hours of sleep, I can still function. If that gets broken up in the middle of the night, I'm basket case. Half an hour, back and forth. It's not the same. And women somehow do it. Not only they do it, they're women that have jobs and and they're bringing in money and whatever. It's hard. There's no question. So women definitely don't have that obligation, but they don't have those obligations. let's say, at least at the moment. Again, should they cracking the books 6-8 hours a day? I wouldn't say that, but they can. Nothing wrong with it, as long as they're learning what they're supposed to do and they're doing it for the sake of heaven and whatever. They're not trying to be like men, but there's plenty for them. What to learn also. It's probably one of the hardest things. Once a woman gets married, she's had all these hopefully inspiring classes. When she went to school after high school for a year, and then it's all about changing diapers and doing what It's like my daughter says, most of her day is taken up by the fact her kids. You got a 4-year-old and a 2.5-year-old, and they're constantly fighting. 2.5-year-old's beating up his older brother because of all things he did to him when he was younger. So it's just like, just trying to keep peace. Just totally trying to keep them from killing each other. But it's kind of funny in a certain way to watch. Because my daughter's like totally not that type, but she got 2 kids like that. And the third one's just going to get used to the other 2, using him like a football or who knows what, he'll toughen up straight away, once he starts taking their toys or whatever. But meantime, he's not a threat. He's just, he's definitely not a threat at the moment, even though he's getting most of his mother's attention. Anyway, I don't want to digress here. What exactly a baby becomes a mamzer? A mamzer is what some people translate as a bastard child. It means a child that was not supposed to be. Meaning a child that comes from a forbidden relationship. Yeah. It's 2 people that are not allowed to be together for whatever reason, right? It's a forbidden relationship. Yeah, it doesn't mean it's a child necessarily out of wedlock. Doesn't mean both necessarily have to be married, per se, but it means that somebody, a child is born through a relationship that should never have been. It was a forbidden relationship. Right, so that child can only marry someone of that same union, as we mentioned before, or a convert. Right, it was born from a promiscuous adulterous union. Yeah, it was a union that wasn't supposed to be. Yeah, let's just say that. Yeah, let me see other questions here. Okay, let's see further. Seems clear. Realize that as made as King David was, his conduct with the death of his friend. Yeah, it's considered a sin. Problem is, anyone who says King David sinned is making a mistake. Why are they making a mistake? You're right, it didn't look so good. Right? In Psalm 51, right, it seems that Nathan the prophet chastises him for marrying Bathsheba. Right? But technically speaking, Uriah Hittite, who was married to Bathsheba, deserved death penalty. Why deserve death penalty? He deserved death penalty because he was married by Malchus. He rebelled against the king. But not only that, when anyone went out to war, they had to get a bill of divorce written, so if they didn't come back retroactively, they would be divorced. So his wife wasn't remarried to him. So you might say, well, it looks really bad, right? A lot of people say this. If you look at it, no, simple explanation. Just to read the verses, it looks bad. 100% it looks bad. But the Gemara says, anyone who says King David sinned, they are making a big mistake. Big mistake. I would agree. It looks kind of bad. Or, as you English would say, a little bit dodgy, a little bit cheeky. Yeah, dodgy, cheeky, whatever. Right? Probably use them wrong. Doesn't matter. Point is, it doesn't look good. You're right. You're right. But at the same time, who comes out of Bathsheba? King Solomon. So obviously they were meant to be together, according to heaven. Right? You see the story by Tamar and Yehuda. Also forbidden relationship, but you see kingship never leaves the tribe of Yehuda, and that's the relationship between Tamar and Yehuda. So you see certain things happen that, probably shouldn't have happened in different ways. But in this case, you're right. You heard a rabbi said he never sinned because that's what the Gemara says. Gemara says he never sinned. Right? You're going to tell me for sure it looked bad. Yeah, but if you know other information, as we said, so Uri deserved to die anyway. Why? That's why I put him on the front line. Why did he deserve to die? Right? Why did he deserve to die? Because he was what we call Mord B'Malchus. He rebelled against the king. So he deserved death penalty. Yeah, not only that, he gave his wife a bill of divorce. She wasn't married. So he knew anything wrong. He didn't do anything wrong. So you say maybe that's technical. But look what he did. Again, we can say we know more than the Gemara, more than what the rabbis say. Rabbis say it wasn't a sin, right? And they're right. It wasn't. So why did he get chastised by Nathan the prophet? Why did he get chastised? It didn't look good. Doesn't mean it was a sin, right? But it just didn't look good. So was it a sin? No. Did it look bad? It might not have looked so good, but not a sin, right? That's definitely not a sin. Someone asked Zechariah. Oh, Zechariah chapter 2, verse 9. Let's see. Who is being sent? Let's see. Let's see if I find it first. One second. I think it was at the end. Yeah, Zechariah chapter 2, verse 9. What does it say? And I will be for it, the word of Hashem will have fire, and the glory will be in its midst. Right? That's what you're quoting. Chapter 2, verse 9. Who is being sent? I think it's him. I think himself. But here in Zechariah chapter 2, right, it's talking about measuring Jerusalem. It says in verse 5, raised my eyes and looked, behold, there was a man. His hand was a measuring line. I said, where are you going? I said, I'm at Jerusalem. Right? Just then the angel was speaking to me was going forth. Another angel was going forth towards him. He said, run, speak to that young man over there, saying, Jerusalem will be settled among its walls, etc. Yes, this new angel told one that this person, who was that young man, or Zechariah himself? Yeah, that's who it was. It was Zechariah himself. That's what the commentaries there seem to say. Yeah, any other questions? From the beginning, Bathsheba was King David's soulmate. His word without knowing she was a true soulmate. Regardless if he's a true soulmate or not. Yeah, it might be true. But if you're going to ask the question, I mean, it's a good question. And that is that according to the verses, it looked bad. It looked like he sinned. Now, again, if we look at it superficially, like many people do, of course they're going to say, look, what he did was bad. What he did was bad. Again, if you look at Psalms chapter 51, yeah, what does it say over there? All right, what does it say? It says, from the conductor a song to David when Nathan the prophet came to him when he came to Bathsheba. Right? He says, show me favor, O God, according to your kindness, according to your vast compassion, erase my transgressions, cleanse me from my iniquity, from my sin, purify me. I may recognize my transgressions in that. Yeah? Right? Yeah, so what does he say? Verse 6. In verse 6, it says, against you alone did I sin, against God. King David says, and that which is evil in your eyes did I do. Therefore, you are justified when you speak and faultless when you judge. So he's admitting he did something wrong, right? But here, God corroborates the sage's assertion that what? David's conduct, though wrong, did not violate the letter of the law. Right? According to that, maybe, according to the letter of the law, he didn't do anything wrong. 100%, he didn't do anything wrong. Did it look dodgy like you would say? Yeah. Maybe the spirit of the law was wrong. Maybe the spirit of the law. King David wanted to be tested, the Gemara says. He had the ability, potentially, to be one of the four Davos. Avram, Yitzhak, Yaakov, David. And he was tested and seemingly didn't make it. Right? Something happened over here. Something happened, even if he didn't sin. And it looked bad, you got to be squeaky clean according to everybody. Right? You got to look squeaky clean over here. You can't do things like that. In the spirit of the law. But in the law itself, did he sin? Didn't sin. And we mentioned why. But another thing you see is the fact he was supposed to be married to Bathsheba. Yeah, even if you say, well, she was a soulmate, okay. But you see, there are certain times in history where people were together when they really shouldn't have been. But you see the outcome, but that's the way it was supposed to be, right? One example, you see David with Leah. Not David, Yaakov with Leah. Right? Yaakov's not supposed to be with her. He's only supposed to be with Rachel. Rachel gave Leah the signs that only Yaakov knew. So after the fact, he wakes up and he sees it's Leah. How can he be married to her? Simple explanation. He didn't have intention for Leah. Cannot prove the marriage. 100% cannot prove the marriage. So how can he be married to her? So Rebbe says over there, how can you stay married to her? Right, according to the Torah, it's not Kedushin, it's not considered he had intention for the right person. If he didn't have intention for the right person, he's not married. So how does it work? Because David understood that the Jewish people had to be built through Leah also. She was a partner over here. But he really shouldn't have been married to her. He didn't have intention for it, but he understood. After the fact, he got swindled. Right? Lavan swindled him. And he didn't think his own potential wife, Rachel, would betray him, right, and give over the signs, but she didn't want to embarrass her sister. Okay. Right? Very noble intentions, 100%. But at the end of the day, it's not the one he wanted to marry. If not the one he wanted to marry, how could he be married to her? It's a mistake. When you make a mistake like that, you're not married. You got to have intention for the person. That's why if a person will get married and they say after ceremony, we're going to have an open marriage. That's, well, you're going to say two consenting adults can't do that. And obviously that's forbidden, right? But if you let's say, again, you didn't have intention for somebody and you marry the wrong, it's really the wrong person. You don't have to be married with them. So my Rebbe asked, how could Yaakov be married to her? Because he understood. He wants to answer. He understood that really, he did everything in his power not to get swindled. Once he saw that he got swindled Mina Shammai, right? This came from heaven because it wouldn't have happened otherwise. In no possible way it should have happened. Because Yaakov said, to Rachel, I'm not worried about your father. I bested the best swindler in the world. That was my brother. That was my brother Esav. I have no problem with your father. I have no problem, right? They made up the secret signs, different things. So he checked all his, he dotted all his I's, he checked all his T's, crossed all his T's. Very good. And then he found out he got swindled. Totally got swindled. Right? So Rebbe says, so the answer is he understood this is what was supposed to happen. Because he understood that was supposed to happen, and Leah is supposed to, and he's supposed to have children through Leah to build up the Jewish people, then he understood, okay, so then, then being married to her was okay. In such a case. But you see, there are cases. Seen Tamar and Yehuda. I mean, very strange case. She's dressed up as a prostitute, and he doesn't know, she's his daughter-in-law. They're not allowed to be together. There's the whole question after the fact that he's together with her, whether he stays together or not. It's a difference of opinion. Regardless, it's still a forbidden relationship. A kingship never leaves the tribe of Yehuda. Based on that relationship. That's mind-boggling. Mind-boggling. Yeah, so you see, they were meant to be together. God orchestrated in such a way, okay. Think of this before the Torah was given and all the other things, but there are certain things we see that's clear that God orchestrates in order for things to happen. Yeah. So you're right. You're right. She was a true soulmate. Okay. Even if she was, doesn't look really bad. I think everyone agrees it looks really bad. And you got secular Israelis saying, "Oh, come on! Of course he sinned. Everyone and their mother will say he sinned." And how bad it looked, they're just missing information, which is not surprising. Yeah, they're missing serious information. Okay, but look how it got orchestrated over here. You're right. So why not do it a normal way? Let him find her, marry her, whatever. in a normal way, not, going behind the back, so to speak. But again, he didn't do anything wrong. The Gemara says he didn't do anything wrong. It just didn't look good. But couldn't have gone orchestrated in a different way. I mean, you look at King David. In general, he came from Lot and his daughters. He came from incest, an incestuous relationship. Not only that, came through Ruth, a Moabite. All right, a Moabite convert. Okay. Also, like, things orchestrate their way. Give an example mentioned last week, my class in the Book of Ruth, right? My conversion students mentioned that, Ruth says to Naomi, your God is my God, your people, my people. Yeah, and Orpah goes off. She goes off and does her own thing. Now, what happens generations later? Offspring of Ruth is who? Is King David. Offspring of Orpah is who? Is Goliath. Very interesting. Ruth goes according to Torah mitzvah. She sticks with Naomi. What happens? Her great-great-grandson does battle and defeats the great-great-grandson of Orpah, who left and went on, forged her own path, so to speak. Those are not coincidental. Yeah, there are a lot of things. I never read it. I don't know if I ever will, but there's a book, never been translated. It's a book on Kabbalah called Sefer Gilgulim. It's a book about, if you look at Jewish history, throughout history, who's the reincarnation of who? And who's trying to fix up whatever sin. And, one of my rabbis, very much steeped in Kabbalah, once told me, he said, you need a lot of fear of heaven to read this book. Because it's a mind-boggling book. Who came back and who's who and who's, what's really going on behind the scenes. He says, you got to have a lot of fear of heaven because it'll blow your mind. Yeah, I never got to it. I still got plenty of other things to get to. But yeah, so you're right. I'm not disagreeing with the fact that she might have been his true soulmate. Okay, I'm just saying it looks a little bit dodgy. Dodgy over here, as English would say. Yeah, it's a little bit dodgy the way it came about. But if you know background history, he didn't do anything wrong, technically. Technically, what did he do wrong? He didn't do anything wrong. Yeah, he deserved to die because of rebelling against the king. And anyway, he gave a bill of divorce to his wife, so he told her married. So what did he do wrong over here? Didn't look good. Okay, that's not a sin, per se. Right? What does King David say? According to Nathan the prophet, what does he say? He said, I sinned before God, not before anyone else. That means he might not have done the right thing in God's eyes, but he didn't sin. That's the point. He didn't sin. But, according to quote-unquote contemporary literature and all that, everyone will say, of course he sinned. It's the way it looks. A lot of things look really bad, so you really understand what it says. Now, I can't even tell you how many times this has come up. People say, oh, but this really means like this, and this really means like that. No, it doesn't. Because of this, that, and the other thing, you're missing about 8 pieces of information. So you're making the wrong conclusion. Again, people can ask the question. I don't care if people ask questions, that's fine. You can ask the question. You just need all the information. And that's hopefully what I do is fill in information. Give people the information they need. But I can hear it's very frustrating in the sense that, person asks a question and say, but I wish I had this information. Okay. It takes time. It takes a lot of time. It's one thing we don't have a lot of. And everyone wants all the information in one shot. So it doesn't work that way. It does not work that way. It's a grind. You're all, the good thing is everything we learn is all building blocks, as we always say. They're all building blocks. And sometimes you're rich in one place where you have a lot of knowledge, some places you're weak, and vice versa. But you have to constantly review. That's what the Torah is. Because it's very easy to forget. Very, very easy to forget. Because there's just a lot of information. A lot of information. As most people know, I don't have to I don't have to reinvent the wheel. That's pretty clear. But if you don't review, you make mistakes. You won't remember. It's good. The person's a genius. They have photographic memory. That helps. But they're, somebody like that, we'll say like this, that someone like that has greater potential. They have much greater potential because God gave them a lot. He gave them a tremendous advantage. Having a photographic memory helps a lot. Being able to recall things from here, from this, from that. You learn something, you remember it. Yeah, not everyone has that gift. Most people don't have that gift. You have to constantly review. Constantly review. People want to learn all the hard stuff, and there are basic things they don't know. Basic things. Basic things. Like I heard of Brevder, blessed memory. Once say people want to learn Kabbalah, these other things like, I got simple verses in the Torah people don't understand. Simple explanation they don't understand. You can't run before you learn how to crawl. You can't learn calculus if you don't understand algebra and trigonometry. You got to take it step by step. Right? But the promise I can give everyone is if you take it step by step, over time you gain knowledge. You gain a lot of knowledge. You have to be patient. And people don't have patience today. Everything is, fast food, fast this, fast that. Nobody's got patience. Everyone wants everything today, tomorrow. They wanted it yesterday. It takes a lot of effort. Takes a lot of effort. Yours truly over here started from the bottom. Really from the bottom. Just because I could read Hebrew, that was an advantage, but not much. Definitely not much. I had to start from the bottom. Crawl my way through every step along the way. Nothing was hand-fed. Nothing. Fight for every last thing, okay? That helped in the long run. The short run, it was like going through hell. All right, Kaufman, read the Mishnah. No, I'll take the 0. Read it and tell me what it means. It's hard. We were taught how to learn without any commentary. It's a lot more difficult. Most places don't do that. The spoon feed you just to get you caught up to speed to understand what's going on. But when you have to really dissect something, you have no idea what's going on. Well, maybe it's like this. Maybe it's like that. Maybe it's like 150,000 different things, but makes you think, makes you analyze, sharpens the mind. Yeah, but it's also very humbling. Extremely humbling. But, I had to make up for lost time. And it was hard. There's no question. But the more a person puts in, the more they get out. And you can't rely on what you knew yesterday, the day before. We can't be lazy. We're lazy. You can't read Torah like a newspaper and think, person read the Raj, says, I got that. But, think, what's he saying? What's he commenting on? What's he not saying? Why is he saying? I just took apart for the last 2 hours a little bit. I went off tangent a little bit. But, let's see. How many words here? 10, 11, 12, 18 words. I just went through 18 words and sort of highlighted what the Ibn Ezra meant. Yeah. You could look at it and say, okay, I got that. Cohen can't be a Levi. Sorry, Cohen could be a Levi. Levi can't be a Cohen. Okay. And are there any other ramifications? Yeah, you got to think, right? That's what Torah is. You can't, as Rabbi once told me, many people told me this, right? He said, you can't, you got to think. I would ask certain questions sometimes. He says, okay, you're going the right direction or you're not going the right direction, right? So it's a good question. Think. I wanted the answer. I don't have to break my head. At least I knew I was going the right direction. Good. That's also part of Torah. But you have to know also when you don't know. And you have to, sometimes it's hard to eat a little bit of humble pie and the person has to admit they're wrong and what they learned was wrong. Okay? That's also part of Torah. Also, it's also part of Torah. Right. I mentioned Psalm 51, somewhere points out, is where Prophet Nathan went to King David's palace and rebuked him. You're right. He rebuked him for the sin of Bathsheba. But again, where was the sin? David says in Psalm 51, you can read it yourself. He says, I sinned before you, before God, not before man. Doesn't say he sinned before man. Right? So the commentaries point out what was the sin over here. He didn't sin. Why do you say he sinned in front of God? Because it wasn't a nice thing that he did. Didn't look good. Doesn't mean it's a sin. But you're right. He gets rebuked because of his stature. He shouldn't have done it. It didn't look bad. Yeah, he didn't sin. So you're going to say, why is he getting rebuked? Again, it looked bad, not because he sinned. Yeah, any other questions? What do the Torah sages mean? God spoke to Moshe Rabbeinu and all the prophets in a human voice. They heard some sort of voice. Right? God spoke to Moshe. It's very hard to understand. God spoke to Moshe in a way where a person speaks to their friend. Now, what was that language? How did God speak? I don't know. Nobody knows what that form was. When it came to anybody else, when it came to prophecy, God showed them an image, a vision, or an angel did, or whatever the case is. He didn't speak to angels. He didn't speak to other prophets in human voice. Definitely not. He only spoke to other prophets, in a totally different way, in a parable, right? But he gave them the ability to answer the parable. Moshe Rabbeinu, not that way. Moshe Rabbeinu, he spoke to like a person speaks to their friend. What did Moshe hear? I can't answer. I don't know. If I knew, I'd have to kill everybody. It'd be kind of messy, right? Don't know. Don't know what that communication was. But it was direct communication. Any other prophet, and that's why they're on a lower level than Moshe, any other prophet did not have that same level of communication. Any other prophet, an angel came to them, gave them some sort of parable or some sort of vision or whatever it was. But Moshe Rabbeinu, not that way. What was it? What type of communication? Did he hear God speak words? No. What did he hear? I can't answer. Don't know. Find out later. We'll find out later, but not now. Don't know. Yeah. Any other? Sorry, but that's the way it is. Any other questions? Sometimes the greatest questions don't have answers. We don't know. These things we don't know. Like if I would go in tomorrow or Tuesday, I go ask my rabbi, so what was that line of communication between God and Moses? Now he's the greatest rabbi of the generation. What's he going to tell me? How do I know? Well, like a prophet? You think God's talking to me? I mean, probably yell at me, in other ways. What do you think I know? Nobody knows. Nobody knows. Yeah. Any other questions? All right, I'm going to stop here. Do this every Sunday, 9 o'clock Eastern time, 4 o'clock Israel time. Anyone has any questions, find me on Facebook at Michael Chaim Kaufman, Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism, or orthodoxconversion.com, or at Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism on YouTube. I have a lot of videos there on Pirkei Avos, ethics for our fathers, Q&As, Torah portion of the week, as well as controversial issues. So anyone has any questions, send me an email. RabbiChaimKaufman@gmail.com, RabbiChaimKaufman@gmail.com. We're having a good beginning of the day, middle of the day.